26th meeting of the Historic and Cultural Landmarks Commission. And thank you for your patience. We're getting started a few minutes late today, but thank you. So, statement regarding the Texas Open Meetings Act.
Thank you so much, Chair. Welcome to the March 9th, 2026 Historic and Cultural Landmarks Commission. Our commission requires a quorum of 6 members to be present and available for voting. The following board members are present today: Chair Rick Herring, Vice Chairwoman Anna Katrina Kelly Gardner, Commissioner Stephanie Musey, Commissioner Esdras Tucker, Commissioner Roger Sheffalo, Commissioner Corey Malone, Commissioner Brian Ketchum, Commissioner Tim Halden, Commissioner Bresendine, and Commissioner Thomas Oliver. Staff present today are Lorelei Willett, Ana Alvarez, Jefferson Prado, Andres Hernandez, Trey Qualls, Haiwan Kim, and myself, Laura Young. Today's meeting agenda can be found online at www.fortworthtexas.gov. Speaker registration forms must have been turned in prior to the start of the meeting. Today's public hearing is being documented by video conference recording, which will be available on the city's website. To achieve a timely and orderly meeting, the HCLC requests that the following rules of procedure be respected. Each case will be called in the sequence listed on the agenda unless otherwise directed by the chair. All ensuing dialogue shall be directed to the HCLC only. After each staff presentation, the applicant and other proponents will be given a total of 7 minutes to speak. Opposition may then speak for 7 minutes. Continuation beyond the speaker's allotted time will be subject to the chairman's sole discretion and approval. All other meeting procedures will adhere to HCLC adopted rules of procedure to the extent practicable. Following the official close of each case hearing, the HCLC will remain in open session to discuss and vote upon the item in question. During this time, no further public testimony or commentary will be allowed unless directed by the chair. A closed executive session may be held with respect to the posted agenda items to enable the HCLC to receive advice from legal staff. For additional information on any case in today's agenda, you may contact the Development Services Department by calling 817-392-8000. Thank you for your attention. Chair Herring, will you please call the meeting to order?
Yes, we are called to order, and thank you for that. Do we have announcements from staff?
Hello, commissioners. I did want to note that Commissioner Oliver had to leave, so it's just 9 of us here. Happy Women's History Month is my announcement today. And also, if you are interested, the Choctaw Code Talker State Marker Ceremony is scheduled, I believe, for April 1st at Veterans Memorial Park. Again, I will send that information out as I get more. And that's all my announcements.
All right, any announcements from commissioners? All right, I just want to make one quick announcement. Today, we received from staff the annual report of activities of the Historic Preservation Office and the Historic and Cultural Landmarks Commission over the past year. And I just want to give a shout out and a very sincere thank you to Lorelei Willett and all of the staff of the Historic Preservation Office for their diligent and outstanding and very thorough work for every case they review and every case they bring before the commission. So thank you. All right, and with that, if there's no further announcements, we'll move on to approval of the February 9th meeting minutes.
I make a motion to
Yes.
approve the February 9th meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Sorry, first was Commissioner Kelly Gardner.
Vice Chair Kelly Gardner.
And it was the second?
Motion and a second by Commissioner Ketchum.
Here we go. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Chair Herring, how do you vote?
Okay.
Vice Chair Kelly Gardner, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Musey,
Yay.
Commissioner Halden, Commissioner Malone, Commissioner Ketchum,
Yay.
Commissioner Sheffalo,
Yay.
Commissioner Brizendine, and Commissioner Tucker.
Yay.
Thank you. Motion passes 9-0.
All right, thank you very much. Let's move on to the first case, please.
The first case on your docket is the applicant requesting a recommendation to City Council to add the highly significant endangered HSE overlay to the object/site of the World War I aerial gunnery target. The target is a remnant of the World War I airfield known as Taliaferro Field No. 1. Taliaferro Field was established in April 1917 following the U.S. entering World War I. When it was founded, the airfield was the largest of 3 airfields built around Fort Worth during the early 20th century. Each of these 3 airfields initially fell under the name Camp Taliaferro and were subsequently called Taliaferro Field No. 1, Field No. 2, and Field No. 3. Later, each of these fields developed their own identities, and Field No. 2 was renamed Barron, and Field No. 3 became Carruthers. Field No. 1 retained the name Taliaferro, but was frequently associated with the nearby Hicks Station and colloquially was referred to as Hicks even during World War I. This target is consistent with descriptions from the time that describe a basin of water the exact size of a plane attributed as a design by Major George E.A. Reinberg, who was the commanding officer of Camp Taliaferro. This description also mentions that the Silhouette water basin would have been surrounded by lime powder, indicating to the pilot a direct hit by splashing water and a close hit with a puff of lime. The site was initially recorded in 2002 as part of the Chapel Hill Development Project regulated by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers under the Clean Water Act, Section 404. The site was investigated again in 2023 in compliance with Section 106, which resulted in a historic resources survey and a memorandum of agreement to list the object as a local, highly significant endangered landmark. The target meets 4 of the 8 criteria for significance. 3 are needed for HSE designation. The subject object is a distinctive object related to Taliaferro Field and the military training exercises done at the airfield. Both as a military installation and as a civilian airport, Taliaferro Hicks Field served as a significant presence in Tarrant County and the city of Fort Worth. For its function as a base and training facility through 2 world wars, the airfield has demonstrated relevant importance to the heritage of the U.S. as a larger context. Though it is only a single feature from historically extensive landscape, the aerial gunnery target represents the events that occurred at the founding of Taliaferro/Hicks Field. The object is an important example of as the only known extant object of its type and as a unique feature that was not widely used. It is noted for its unique innovation, design, and craftsmanship of a built resource. The site has yielded, that was 1 and 2, 6. The site has yielded significant archaeological data pertaining to training practices, materials, and life of those stationed at Taliaferro Field during World War I. The structure itself has also yielded information about the various dimensions and forms that were used in the target's design. As a unique structure, this demonstrates valuable information about tactical training during World War I. There is also potential for further information to be uncovered as well, should further archaeological or archival studies be completed on the site. And 7, the subject object is related to the specialized training of aviators during World War I. Although many of the places associated with the conflict are overseas, the training exercises completed at Taliaferro Field played a significant role in the U.S. and Allied forces' efforts in Europe. The efforts from the home front remain an important aspect of this time in history, and the events of Taliaferro Field reflect the important role the U.S. played in a global conflict. It also meets 5 of 7 aspects of integrity, including location, design, materials, workmanship, and feeling. The object meets the criteria to be considered under threat of irretrievable loss due to the development pressures, damage caused by elements, and possible vandalism. The applicant is working to mitigate these threats. Staff have found evidence that the object meets 4 of the 8 criteria for designation. The object also retains 5 aspects of integrity and the identity for which it is significant. And lastly, the property is considered endangered. This is consistent with the requirements of the ordinance for highly significant endangered properties. Therefore, staff recommends the following motion: that the HCLC recommend that City Council consider designating the object outline of the target known as the World War I gunnery target at Taliaferro Field No. 1 as highly significant endangered, and that the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties be used when evaluating any proposed future change to the property. This concludes the staff report.
Thank you very much for that information. Is there anyone in the chamber to speak on this case? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the hearing. And commissioners, any questions or discussion with staff?
No.
I do have one question that I did not bring up in staff report, and it's just a matter of curiosity. But do we know who placed the bar fence around the site?
We don't actually. It kind of appeared in 2005-ish, I think.
Oh, that's great that it's there. I was just wondering if the property owner had done that or anyone else. That was my only question. Anything from commissioners? If not, we're open for a motion and a second.
I second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Brizendine and a second by Commissioner Halden to approve the recommendation.
Chair Herring, how do you vote?
Yay.
Vice Chair Kelly Gardner,
Yay.
Commissioner Musey,
Yay.
Commissioner Halden,
Yay.
Commissioner Malone,
Yay.
Commissioner Ketchum,
Yay.
Commissioner Chevalo,
Yay.
Commissioner Brizendine,
Yay.
and Commissioner Tucker.
Yay.
Thank you. Motion passes 9-0.
All right, thank you. Next case, please.
Your next case is an appeal case for 2301 Fleming Drive, HCLC 26049. Applicant appeals the decision of the Historic Preservation Officer and requests a certificate of appropriateness to replace 3 historic wood windows with vinyl windows and to replace the 2 paired windows in the front with a vinyl picture window on the contributing structure. So just some background information. On March 21st, 2025, the property owner, Mr. Allen, contacted the Preservation Office regarding process for replacing existing windows. Preservation staff emailed the property owner on an application for a certificate of appropriateness and the process for submittal. On May 22nd, 2025, the property owner contacted preservation staff to inform staff that the window companies he had been contacting were not willing to process the window conditions assessment or fill out the paperwork to begin the certificate of appropriateness process. He requested assistance with the application. Preservation staff called and left Mr. Allen a voicemail the next day. On May 30th, 2025, preservation staff performed a site visit to assist Mr. Allen with the certificate of appropriateness application and took pictures of the windows proposed for replacement. Staff provided contact information for 3 wood window replacement companies, which work in Fort Worth's historic districts. Mr. Allen reported to staff that none of these companies responded to his calls. On June 24th, 2025, preservation staff communicated via email to Mr. Allen an option for a window company called Pella Windows, which has provided wood windows in Fairmount Historic District. On June 27, 2025, Mr. Allen provided the window estimates that Pella Windows provided. The estimate is for wood windows with the same profiles of the existing windows for approximately $20,000. On July 1st, 2025, Mr. Allen forwarded the contact information for 2 window companies he contacted to consider for the work. Staff called to inquire for Mr. Allen whether they would be able to provide wood replacements. On July 2nd, 2025, Mr. Allen forwarded via email an estimate from Best Buy Windows and Siding, LLC, for approximately $22,000. The details of the window replacements were not described in the contract. On February 18, 2026, Mr. Allen called to follow up on the application for certificate of appropriateness and requested to proceed with the appeal process for the replacement vinyl windows. On February 24, 2026, preservation staff performed a site visit to assess the condition of the windows and take additional photos. Preservation staff issued the following decision regarding the COA application: to deny the request for a certificate of appropriateness for the replacement of 3 existing wood windows with vinyl windows and to replace the 2 paired windows with a vinyl picture window. On February 24th, the applicant appealed the decision of the Historic Preservation Officer to deny the request for COA for the replacement of those 3 existing wood windows with vinyl windows and to replace the 2 paired windows with the vinyl picture window. And so just findings and recommendations from staff. The replacement of 3 existing wood windows with vinyl windows and the replacement of 2 paired wood windows in the front porch area with a vinyl picture window at 2301 Fleming Drive is inconsistent with the Historic Carver Heights District guidelines, the Secretary of the Interior Standards for the Treatment of Historic Properties, and the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for windows. First, the replacement of existing materials without a conditions assessment prepared by an experienced wood window specialist is not appropriate. A conditions assessment documenting the condition of each window is necessary to inform a proposed scope of work. Unfortunately, Mr. Allen was unsuccessful in securing a window company that was willing and able to perform this work for his windows, and it is now nearing a year from since he first inquired about getting his windows replaced. Preservation staff went to the property and performed a site visit in May of 2025 for an assessment of the windows and found several of the windows showing signs of deterioration, most notably the single window on the front facade. The window and several other windows contained dark stains and discoloration, which can signal water intrusion, mold, and early stage decay. Several areas of wood were found to have cracks and splits, which is likely due to the age of the windows and UV exposure. Showing you some of the windows with damage. During a more recent site visit in February of this year, staff found an increase in the level of deterioration. Among the windows, the single window on the front facade is far beyond repair and is recommended for replacement. If the remaining windows are determined to be too deteriorated to repair, the wood windows should be replaced in kind with new wood windows that match the style, profile, and dimension of the original wood windows. Additionally, any replacement of a wood window should accurately replicate the original wood windows using the existing physical evidence to guide the design of the new units. The existing window configuration features a 2/2 style rather than a 1/1 style, which is proposed with the vinyl windows. The paired windows are proposed to be replaced with a picture window, which will increase the proportion of this opening and change the style, which is not recommended. Finally, the replacement of wood windows with vinyl windows are highly visible alterations given that the work is proposed on the front facade and side elevation. The high visibility magnifies the adverse impact of the work not only on the contributing structure, but on the character and integrity of the district setting as well. Having regard to the foregoing, staff recommends the following motion: that the request for a certificate of appropriateness to replace 3 historic wood windows with vinyl windows and to replace the 2 paired windows in the front with a vinyl picture window on the contributing structure be denied without prejudice, because the request is inconsistent with the Historic Carver Heights guidelines and the Secretary of the Interior's standards for the treatment of historic properties. Just to show you some additional photos of the deterioration. And then also I'll get to the very last. So this is the picture window on the left, and then the 1/1 windows on the right, which are also vinyl. We did receive a letter from Carver Heights, which you have in your packet. The letter is in opposition of the request. That concludes the staff report.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that staff report. All right, is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak on this case? If so, just please come forward. And just come on up, sir, and tell us anything you would like us to know or give us any information. And please give us your name and address for the record if you don't mind.
Gary Dwayne Allen, 2301 Fleming Drive, Fort Worth, Texas.
Yes, sir.
I'm the owner of the home. I grew up and I raised in that particular home where I was born and raised. And I'm by myself. And I would like to be able to beautify my home and keep my energy in the best I can. But I'm on a fixed income and I can't afford anything like that at that particular price. I have pictures that you will be able to see. The people on my same street on Fleming has those type of homes, and I was wondering if there's any way that I could get the same thing, because I've been praying like mad over there. Hopefully, that y'all would go on my side to where I can try to get what I like to have. As you can see, the wood, I can't get out there and paint them and replace them and all that kind of stuff anymore. And I just like to have some help if I could. And if there's anything you need to ask me, I'd be more than happy to answer it the best I can. But I sure would like to have me some windows that my mother and father I know would sure enjoy the house better than what it is.
Well, thank you, Mr. Allen, for that information, and I can assure you that we are on your side. We are bound, though, by the guidelines of the historic district, but we certainly appreciate the serious financial burden it would be for anyone to replace these with the estimates that you've received so far. We're hopeful there may be some solution, but for the moment, I'll leave it there and see if others have questions or comments for you. But commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Allen at this time? We did hear a significant amount of information in the work session we had prior to this meeting about the various contractors you've reached out to and so forth, and maybe some possible solutions for you so it's not so uh, cost prohibitive. Um, One thing that I may have forgotten, and maybe the other commissioners can remind me, or did we see or hear any of the estimates that Mr. Allen had received about the vinyl windows?
We did have Anna provided a cost analysis that
Okay.
she did, but what we did not see were these pictures of the surrounding houses in the neighborhood
Yeah.
during the work session.
So these pictures you provided are helpful. You know, things happen at different times. But just one question for you. Have you had any communication with the Carver Heights Neighborhood Association about any of this? It doesn't matter one way or another. I'm just curious.
Oh, I talked to Miss Chelsea White, and she gave me some information. She wanted to help me find.
Okay.
She would talk to them and everything.
Okay.
And I was trying to do all I could, and she was trying to help me all she could.
Right.
Matter of fact, we live on the same street.
Okay.
Yes.
And Ms. White did provide a letter on behalf of the neighborhood association saying that they are supportive of the staff's recommendation that we deny it at this time to give you some additional time to work out something that may be feasible. But again, we do certainly appreciate the hardship that this places on you, and we all want to take care of our homes. And older homes have older windows, and they present a lot of problems. Commissioners, any other comments for Mr. Allen at this time?
I don't know how the vote's going to go, but one thing I'll recommend to you on any of your wood windows, especially when they start, failing, there's a product called Wood Hardener. Minwax makes it, a few other companies do, and it literally is a liquid you brush on, and it really helps stop the cells in the wood from decaying, and it hardens them back up to a more solid piece of wood. So if you have some of that, that could help prevent some of the other damage on other windows, perhaps. So something to look into. It's a really easy thing to apply. That'll help a little bit, but I mean, it's obviously you have some really bad windows here on the side and the front, but if you go to rehab them, that might be a good thing to look into.
But I got a question. You all have the last say, and I understand that. But it's just coming across my mind, since you said you all know how the vote's going to go, how is it that someone else on my same street could have that and I can't? And I don't have the money to do that, and I'm trying to do it the right way, and a lot of people are just doing it just to be doing it. At least I come across and try to do it the correct way.
Right.
I mean,
Well, that's a very good question, and I'm going to ask the staff to address that when they come back up.
okay.
But we'll see. We'll try to answer your question as best we can.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very valid question and concern. We may call you back up in a moment for some questions, but I think for right now, we're ready to move,
Okay.
continue
Just a
to talk.
second.
Oh, yes, no.
Yes, I did have a comment that I wanted to share as well.
Yes.
Thank you for being here and fighting for your history of your home. You are the history of the neighborhood. You've
Yes.
been there, so you grew up in the home. So we are the Historic Landmark Commission. So in my opinion, you would take that into consideration, that you are part of the history of your house. And we did not have these photos during our work session that blatantly shows other houses in the neighborhood with the same type of windows that you are requesting.
Yes.
So yes, and during our conversation amongst each other, that will be a topic. And as far as the why, staff, we have been here before. So I don't really think that the answer to that question is necessary, as it's already been answered several times before. So thank you again for coming.
All right.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Allen. Is there anyone else in the chamber to speak on this case? All right, seeing none, we're going to close the public portion of the hearing. And commissioners, we can address any questions or concerns to the staff. And as you say, Vice Chair, I mean, we've been here before with these, somebody down the street has done the same thing. But on it may be helpful just to, repeat how that may happen and circumstances.
Sure. Sometimes they'll do the work without a certificate of appropriateness or without a permit, and it just kind of gets left to staff or our code officer, and we only have one for all of our historic districts to go out there and, search for those, to cite them, to let them know that they need to come in for a certificate of appropriateness to follow the correct process. So with each of those, I will take a look into to see how they were allowed or how they got to be there. But essentially, that they would follow the same process.
And it's always difficult and disturbing for us because when we have someone like Mr. Allen who comes forward and to follow the right process, and then others that haven't done that just are doing it and doing the same thing that he wants to do, but haven't followed the proper procedures. One thing that makes this a little difficult for me is that we've seen many of these cases, not only in Carver Heights, but other neighborhoods with windows, and we've held them to the standards of whatever historic district they were in, regardless of how much we empathize with the homeowner. So that's kind of where I am. We've had others that we've insisted that we have not granted their exception request or their waiver. So anyway, other thoughts or comments? Yes, sir.
Another point I guess I would make or add with this in a question. Carver Heights was established when as a.
I believe it was 2006 or 2007. Okay.
That's one thing I would say we've seen from time to time as people have made alterations and then the district was established and then people later want to try to make similar alterations. But that's after the point that the overlay has come into effect.
We'd have to do the research.
And so that presents a challenge. The other question I've got for staff, do y'all have a copy of like the Pella?
We do.
Obtain a Pella.
So it is part of his file. I didn't include it. It just mentioned it in the report because he still has the option to do a waiver, to come in for a waiver request. So then with the waiver, it would be more looking at those financial documents and consideration of how much it would cost him. So there is still another process that he could follow to essentially get the approval.
Can
Yeah, that's what I was.
can a copy? I assume it includes all the measurements of the windows.
Of the windows. So this is all I got for this one. For the Pella, it has very specific details for dimensions. Yes.
Could I get a copy of that?
Could you get a copy? I'm assuming so.
Curious.
Okay. Yes.
A question.
Later.
Sure.
A question that I had was based on that line was, does he have an opportunity to file a waiver for financial reasons?
Yes. Correct.
Okay, and that has not taken place as of yet.
No, this is the first. So it's essentially the COA application first. Once it gets denied, he can appeal it. It comes in for an appeal. And then if that gets denied, then he can come in for the waiver.
Okay.
And then you can consider the financial hardship.
Yeah.
So we talked about a little bit about Habitat, about contacting Habitat. Is that something we could do or he could do
Yes.
as well? Or
Yes, I
how
can-
does that happen?
So Habitat is an organization outside of the city, right?
Right.
Any organization or any program that the city offers, we've kind of gone through that, an exhaustive, look at those. I can help him with the Habitat for Humanity to see if they offer a program like that for him.
Yeah,
I'm just not sure yet.
I think it would be a great resource to check out for
Sure.
sure.
Yeah, because not to mention the financial burden it costs to change the windows. I'm also thinking about the financial burden that is going on right now with those windows, like the electricity, keeping the house warm or cold, with those windows in the house. So to know that he still has an opportunity to file the waiver, is a good thing. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, well, it is an option. So it's a good one. All right, commissioners, any other thoughts, comments, or questions for Anna?
Just want to, I'm going to reiterate that, when we get cases like this, and the people on the same street have the same thing, you know what I mean? As Anna stated, she's going to research about those other houses. However, as a city that seeks to walk in integrity,
Right.
the integrity needs to unfold across the board. Has to be some sense of responsibility and accountability. We have to come into orchestrate a method where this stops happening.
Well, and I agree, but to the question that was posed earlier, when did the historic district guidelines go into effect? And it was either 2006 or 2007. And some of these other examples we've seen could have taken place before that, and they wouldn't be subject. Thank you. The so we have to look at that. It could have happened before, say 2007. We see this again. I'll just kind of repeat my earlier comment of cases that we see over and over. And I'll use, we see a lot of front yard fence cases in Morningside, especially, I believe, Morningside Historic District. And it's always, well, how long has it been there? How did this happen? That sort of thing. But obviously, your point is well taken.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioners, any other comments, questions before we go to make a decision?
So just to verbalize, we'll vote on this, and then if it's denied without prejudice, he could apply for a waiver the next month, and then we vote on that on a different set of criteria.
Yes.
That is correct.
Yes, that is correct.
And you understand that, Mr. Allen?
Yes,
Okay.
Come on back.
Right, I understand.
That's my thought. It's a dangerous situation.
I just been waiting the whole year, and my electric bill and things it's getting to where it's tough.
Yes, sir.
It's tough to keep the energy in, and I know these houses, if these windows put in, they've been put in after 2007. I do.
Okay. Well, that's helpful for us to know, but thank you. Sorry we had to get you back up, but appreciate the information for sure.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes.
I just have one other thing I'd like to say. When looking at this with the timeline and how it's been going on, like you said, for a year, those windows look like they don't provide a lot of physical security either. And he lives alone, and he lives, and that's, to me, the danger. There's a danger aspect to this whole thing as well when it comes to personal and property security. I don't know if he has an alarm system or an animal or whatever, but they just don't look very stable to me. So along with the energy and the bills and the expense, I'm seeing it from a standpoint of safety as well. So just thought I would.
No, thank you. Thank you. Any other comments, commissioners?
My question is, what is the cost of the windows that he's proposed to put in? And then can we get Pella to give us a price on what we would propose to have him do?
I believe Mr. Allen quoted about 4,000 for these windows here, because they're coming to him from a contractor who is essentially buying them from a window warehouse to put them in and install. So
4,000
just
each
need
or
Pella.
4,000 total?
I think total.
Mhm.
And then do we have a source at Pella that can give us a comparable bid on this?
I think Pella can give another estimate. I mean, you just reach out to the company and then, ask them to either meet you or they say no, right? So
Yeah,
guess I can say this. I've already texted Jack Pella between our meeting sessions. So, I mean, it can be done. Yeah.
Great.
All right, commissioners, before we move on to a motion, any other discussion?
Get the pricing. Yeah. No, well, no. And I did have a question though. Is this how, and it could be staff or applicant, the siding on this house, vinyl siding, it appears?
No, I didn't take a look at the siding, so maybe it would be appropriate.
Yeah, it looks like it's been there a while, but is it aluminum or is it vinyl siding? Doesn't look like it's wood. There's no proper. What do
He
you,
believes it's vinyl, if he's not mistaken.
just curious. Keep that in perspective too, putting wood
Right.
with vinyl.
Good point. All right, let's close the discussion, and commissioners, we're open for a motion in a second. Now, one thing I do want to say before this, before we move on, IT asked that we all leave our microphones on. You should have a little green button there, and this will be important for the motion, second, and vote, and future discussion. So please make sure that your mics are on at all time. Okay, we've heard the comments and discussion. We're open for a motion.
I want to make a motion to approve him changing the windows in lieu of Anna assisting him with Habitat for Humanity to see if he can get the wood windows. I'm just going to step out there and make that motion.
So your
I'll
motion
second that.
basically is to approve the certificate of appropriateness that Mr. Allen has requested.
Yes.
I second that motion.
All right, commissioners, we have a motion and a second, and I'll say the names in just a minute, but any other discussion before we take a vote?
Well, because if we deny him, then he can apply for the waiver, and we're gonna be back here again, and we're gonna approve the waiver based on the financial burden that it's causing Mr. Allen.
Understand. All right, we have a motion on the floor by Vice Chair Kelly Gardner and a second by Commissioner Musey.
And that is a motion to approve the COA as requested.
Yes, as requested, and not to deny with prejudice.
Okay. Chair Herring, how do you vote?
Yay.
Vice Chair Kelly Gardner, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Musey, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Tucker, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Sheffalo, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Malone, how do you vote? Commissioner Ketchum, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Brizendine, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Halden, how do you vote?
Yay.
Motion passes 9-0 to approve the COA as requested.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you again, Mr. Allen, for being here and your comments. We appreciate you. And I know staff will continue to work with you on resolution. All right, let's move on to the next case, please.
Your next case is for 1112 Elizabeth Boulevard for HCLC 26050. The applicant requests a certificate of appropriateness to construct a new two-story garage and install shutters on the front windows of the contributing structure. Just some background. On January 15, 2026, the applicant began the process to request a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition and removal of non-historic structures, i.e. the carport and auxiliary structure, and replacement of falling concrete flatwork. The application was submitted but not accepted because additional documentation was deemed necessary. On January 20th, 2026, preservation staff reached out to the applicant by email to request additional information and plans. The applicant responded to staff the same day. On January 21st, 2026, preservation staff advised the applicant that some of the work could not be approved administratively and HCLC review would be necessary. The applicant responded the following day and provided additional information. On January 26, 2026, preservation staff notified the applicant that documents were received, and if anything else were needed, it would be communicated. On February 13, 2026, Preservation staff approved a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the contributing garage due to structural issues. On February 16, 2026, preservation staff placed the request for the addition of shutters and the new accessory garage on the agenda for the March HCLC hearing. Under staff's findings and recommendations, for the new shutters, the applicant proposes the addition of shutters to the first residence built in Elizabeth Boulevard's historic district. Based on available documentation and review of the building, shutters are not considered to be an original feature of the structure. While the design guidelines state that non-original shutters may be added when they are consistent with the architectural style of the house, the proposed shutters would introduce a new material, new architectural element that was not historically present on the building. The standards for rehabilitation state that each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use, and that alterations creating a false sense of historical development, such as the addition of conjectural features, should not be undertaken. The addition of shutters where none historically existed would introduce a conjectural element and alter the historic facade composition. Just show you that facade. Under new construction of the accessory structure, the analysis is, it is proposed that an approximately 40.6 by 26 foot two-story garage with a porch overlooking the pool area on the ground floor on the east side, garage entry on the west side. The second floor will have a home office and exercise space. An elevated covered walkway will extend from the second floor to the first floor kitchen area of the main house. Building materials proposed are wooden shiplap siding and with a roof material and similar roof design consistent with the existing house. Having regard to the district standards and design guidelines, the proposed accessory structure is consistent with the district standards and guidelines in relation to massing because the structure is compatible with the heights and number of stories of the existing residence. Under setbacks and the lot coverage analysis, so in relation to site coverage and the main front line setback, however, so the proposed design is inconsistent with the district standards and design guidelines because it exceeds the lot coverage for the accessory structure and the main front line of the garage, whereas the district standards and design guidelines stipulate that the main front line of the garage shall extend no more than 20 feet in front of the rear property line. So the lot coverage ratio for accessory buildings is 5% coverage. Tarrant Appraisal District information lists the property square footage, including the portion of Lot 3, as 14,250 square feet total. The calculated allowed lot coverage is 712.5 square feet. The garage accessory structure footprint square footage has been calculated using the survey information provided under the scale drawings and is approximately 1,542 square feet. The total lot coverage calculated for the proposed garage accessory is 10.82%, which exceeds the 5% limit by 829.5 square feet. The garage accessory structure would need to be reduced to approximately 712 square feet for compliance with the 5% standard in the district. The legal description for the property describes it as Block 6, Lot 2, with the west 27.6 feet of Lot 3. The location and position of the garage accessory does well to keep minimum visibility from Elizabeth Boulevard and also complies with the standard which requires that the rear wall be at the rear property line and the side wall on the right property line of Lot 2. However, the main front line of the garage extends to 32 feet in front of the rear property line, which is not compliant with the standard that a garage extend no more than 20 feet in front of the rear property line. The garage accessory should be reduced to meet the standard of 20 feet. The connecting covered walkway is compatible with the heights and number of stories of the existing residence building. However, in relation to site coverage and the main front line setback, the proposed design is inconsistent with the district standards and design guidelines because it exceeds the lot coverage for the accessory structure. For the screening wall, the proposed screening wall is proposed to be 8 foot high, constructed in solid masonry. The district standards and guidelines stipulate that the side yard shall be reserved for grass, trees, shrubbery, ground cover, and border flowers. However, the district standards and design guidelines also make provision for locating walls inside yards. The district standards and guidelines show what appears to be an acceptable location for a wall. However, they do not address the height and density of the wall. The zoning regulations, however, do establish maximum heights and densities for walls and must be met. So the proposed location meets the district standard, which requires that fences, walls, and enclosures be set back 90 feet from the front curb. In conclusion, Staff have discussed the addition of shutters, the lot coverage setback, and wall design matters with the applicant. The proposed development includes aspects of compliance and non-compliance with zoning regulations, preservation principles, and district guidelines. For the shutters, the proposed shutters are inconsistent with the applicable Elizabeth Boulevard historic standards and design guidelines and the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. For the garage accessory structure, the size of the structure is considered substantial, and its location is expected to have a dominating effect on the overall streetscape of the property, which in turn impacts the character and appearance of the district. As an accessory structure, it should be more subordinate in scale and placement. Therefore, it is recommended that conditions related to lot coverage and compliance with the required 20-foot front wall setback be applied. And for the screening enclosure, the proposed design is considered to be in compliance with the applicable zoning regulations and the district standards, and the design is consistent with the spirit and intent of requirements for walls and enclosures constructed within the side yard. Therefore, the proposed mechanical enclosure is considered appropriate as designed. Staff consider that areas of noncompliance cannot be addressed without substantial revision to the plans, and therefore recommend the following motion: that the application for a certificate of appropriateness to construct a new two-story garage and install shutters on the front windows of the contributing structure be denied without prejudice because the request is inconsistent with the Elizabeth Boulevard Historic District and guidelines and the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. This concludes the staff report.
All right, thank you for that extensive report and that information. Is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak on this case? Yes, sir. Please come forward and give us any information you'd like to share, as well as your name and address for the record, please. And please adjust the microphone so we be able to have it recorded.
So, my name is Shannon Logan. I actually prepared this application for the owners, Jamie and Pam Packer. And just to address a few things, I was at the meeting prior to this where the staff was doing the work session with you. These particular owners are well aware of what the guidelines are. Had a copy of them before they purchased the house, as did the previous owners, a real estate agent. Sold them the house, owned it previously, actually got a COA to replace the front door that had a number of issues that was erroneous. But nevertheless, they were aware of the situation and relied heavily on the guideline document to guide them through the process. Unfortunately, that's where the problem started. Number one, the guidelines specifically state that there's a neighborhood group that you would ordinarily meet with that would be able to assist you, advise you, support you, throw out anything that might be a problem. Unfortunately, several years back, the code enforcement folks decided that they didn't want any neighborhood contact or any neighborhood participation in the process and said, no, we're not going to do that. Now, given that the document was actually codified by the full city council and is a replacement document for one that existed long prior to 2007, that sort of helter-skelter, unilateral, capricious comment kind of threw the entire neighborhood off. So they don't have the group in place to actually assist. Second thing that the guidelines call for is to try and do coordination meetings with the HCLC group here at the city. I reached out on 7 occasions via phone and 2 times in person coming down here to try and set up preliminary meetings to go over what the preliminary plans were going to be, what the owners wanted to do, which was improve the property in keeping with the guidelines that they had reviewed. And they had hired an architect at considerable expense and designers at considerable expense, already reached out to contractors, had run into another wall because the property is a lot and a half. And even though taxes have been paid that way since the early 1930s, and there is no replatting required as per a letter they've received from the city, it became an issue at that time also. So the first meeting that I had to try and coordinate a design was this past Thursday directly with staff and tried to address these issues and see what their concerns were, what their problems were, et cetera. So the other thing that might be helpful to know is that I've lived on Elizabeth Boulevard for 20 plus years. My wife's lived here for almost 40 years. I've worked on 9 separate projects on Elizabeth Boulevard in various capacities, including the one that I'm living in, which required 7 COAs and 8 separate building permits to do the work that we did. And so after 5.5 years of work, and we were doing the final walkthrough with the city inspectors, I just asked them, why has this been so difficult? Why require us to jump through all these hoops? We wanted to do the right thing. We've tried to do the right thing. We've done it all along. And the lead inspector that signed off on the certificate of occupancy had one word response for me. Sport is what he said. Sport. We had had 2 meetings in front of full city council going through appeals that had been approved. The mayor at the time, Mayor Moncrief, actually apologized to us for all the trouble. And so I worked on a number of other projects since then. I'd become somewhat of a go-to guy for people in the neighborhood. And so I've assisted the Packers with this. And so here we are with 2 issues that are remaining. One that's been withdrawn, but it may come back up because apparently there's a miscommunication on how that occurred. But with respect to the shutters, there's only one sentence in the entire document that these owners have relied on to buy the house, do the design to improve the house, try and do the right thing here. And that one sentence says non-original shutters may be added if in keeping with the architectural design of the house. Staff asked for some sort of evidence that shutters were present in the neighborhood. I provided photographic evidence of a number of homes. I believe there were 6 that were submitted. Houses that had original shutters, as far as I can tell from photographs dating back to the 20s, and a couple of houses that the shutters were not original. And one is in the next block from us, and I know when they put the shutters in. I saw it. So I don't see that there's any conflict. The only conflict I see is with this issue is that there may be another interpretation, but I don't get it. I don't know what it might be. It's clear. It says non-original shutters may be added. These are
Pardon
not
me?
original,
We're
and we're
down
adding
1
them.
minute.
Okay, Mr. Logan, yeah, we want to hear your information, but try to bring it to a
Okay,
conclusion.
so that's issue number 1. Issue number 2, regard to the garage structure. I guess the concern is that it sits farther than 20 foot back from the property line. There are 4 existing structures on the house. If the site plan can be pulled up, if it can't, I have the originals here, but yeah, I'm not good at, okay. No. That one will work, that one will work. So,
Hold on just 1 second. Laura, let's extend his time for a couple more minutes.
So there are 3 major structures that exist right now, and those structures have existed since 1928, 1933, 1934. So carports, lean-to structures, and an apartment building, none of which are original to the house. And we provided tax records and photographic evidence from the 20s to demonstrate that, even though one of the structures has been determined that it was. I don't understand that either. But the coverage on the existing structures, which in this case are definitely grandfathered or great-great-grandfathered in, are 1,188 square feet for the structure location that we would site the new structure, with the new structure being 1,183 square feet, so smaller than what exists. The extension away from the property line into the lot for the existing structure is 36 feet 8 inches, as staff pointed out. They call it 37 feet, but it's 36 feet 8 inches. Our proposed new structure, 32 feet, less than that. So in the document, again, the go-to document, it says that it could be replaced in kind. In this case, in kind, it's the same type of structure, located essentially the same place with less coverage, less incursion into that lot. Now, there seems to be a different interpretation with staff on what that in kind in that particular paragraph means. I'm the guy that actually wrote this paragraph. I was put on that committee after the other one was deemed, and so this is one that I had responsibility for. So I know what it means, and it meets the definition of in kind. So I don't see that we're in violation of anything. If you combine all of the other structures that nobody wants, which are carports and lean-to buildings, that comes to 2,408 feet. Again, we're at 1,183. And, so I would recommend either you vote to address the in-kind and the grandfathered buildings that were there that were non-conforming that we want to replace, or vote to allow a waiver as a number of other houses on Elizabeth Boulevard have for a much larger garage than the 20 feet.
Well, let me ask you this, and there may be other questions for you. I'm sure there are, but you just were able to meet with the staff this past Thursday, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Would additional time help with discussions with staff on some of the interpretation issues?
Well, I thought it might, but I wasn't encouraged by that meeting, to be honest with you. I really didn't understand. I came away a bit more perplexed than I was when I went into the meeting, to be honest with you.
Let's see other questions.
Yeah, well, we definitely don't want you to be perplexed.
Oh, yeah. Well, it happens all the time.
And we definitely are confident in the communication style of the staff and do believe that if given the opportunity to go back and discuss it further, you all may be able to come up with a viable agreement based on the ramifications of the measurements of the house. And I will refer to our Commissioner, Roger Sheffalo, who, yes, because he is when it comes to measurements and that sort of thing, he's very abreast. So there you have it.
So you might be interested to hear that this house actually, the proposed structure and the existing structure actually sit 4.7 feet below the grade of the main house. And with the new construction, it's going to probably be a foot lower than that to try and get the grade correct to shed the water because of a situation with the house next door being in violation of just about every rule possible.
Let me ask you another. I'm sorry. Let me ask you another question. You stated that I want to be clear on what letter. Who stated that the non-original shutters could be placed there? Where did that come from?
The guideline document.
I think it was the Elizabeth Boulevard Historic District guidelines.
Okay, and are those guidelines current guidelines, or have they been altered?
No, they're current guidelines.
They're current guidelines.
That's what's current. I pulled up fresh copy of that as well as the criteria and going through this entire process.
Well, that's why I realized you said you didn't feel encouraged coming out of the Thursday meeting. For me, it just seems like some more time might be appropriate. To make sure the guidelines are the most current, whatever the case may be, just further discussions. And I did take note of some of the issues you brought up, how the guidelines stated there should be a committee of Elizabeth Boulevard residents or whatever, and code said, no, we're taking that away, or whatever the case was. You weren't able to communicate as much as you would like previously with the staff after some attempts to contact them. And then just some interpretation issues with the guidelines. But that's kind of what I'm feeling at the moment. I think there's, I don't know if they're misunderstandings, but just differences of opinion, interpretation, whatever you want to call it. And I don't feel like, for me personally, there's been some conflicting information, and I don't want to make a decision on conflicting information. And I apologize, Mr. Logan. I should have asked commissioners, do you have any other questions for Mr. Logan before we get into our discussion? Mr. Brisden?
I do. So quick, oh my gosh, I just lost the agenda. The carport, so on the site plan, I think it's figure 2, if I remember correctly, if we can pull it up. When you were quoting the total square footage of existing structures, in kind of drawing your comparison between what's existing and what's proposed, yeah, the carport, which I guess is on the east side of the property, northeast side. That
So, yeah, so the black outlines, the heavy black outlines are existing non-conforming structures.
Okay, so
lot.
that carport, which spans both lots.
There's actually 3 carports,
There's 3,
2 of
yeah.
which are associated with the one-story frame that you see in the northwest corner. So
But in your math on the square footage, you're including that carport.
the
the
math
example you gave.
included that entire structure, including the carports. It's not clear where the carport stops and the building starts. It was done many years ago, so.
And I'm talking the one that says existing, the one to the east.
The one on the east.
That is that attached to something?
They're attached to each
Freestanding.
other.
Okay.
There's an existing lean-to
Just up on
wooden
the
structure
north.
and then a larger carport that will support 4 cars that's built out of metal.
Okay. So, but that was in your math and just the example you were giving in terms of the square footage.
Only in the larger math, the
Okay, yeah.
2,400 square foot total. The math where the buildings are actually very close, 1188 versus 1183, only considers the building on the west
The
side.
west. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brisendine.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Mr. Logan. I mean, obviously you're well versed in how this works, and you heard the comments in the work session. And, that's just based on what we're reading in the staff report and off the cuff comments and so forth. But that's why we have a public hearing, so that obviously we can hear all the testimony and other information that we may not have known before.
I do have one more question. Is the house currently for sale, or has it been recently purchased?
Both, actually.
It's for sale and
It's been recently purchased by the Packers within the past 2 years, but it is also currently on the market. And part of that reason is the frustration regarding this particular issue. I haven't been working on it for 2 years. I've been working on it since December. But the reason that it's on the market is because of the frustration not being able to get done what they wanted to get done. It was, they planned on spending probably $750,000, if not more, to do something that they felt was entirely compliant, and I concur.
Well, and thank you for answering the question about if they were aware of the historic district, and obviously they were, but you can understand that's always a question that comes up. Did you know about it? They did, and they've tried to do the right thing. So we'll close the public hearing at this time. Is there anyone else in the chamber to speak on this particular case? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the hearing. And thank you, Mr. Logan. We might call you back if we have additional questions or whatever. Okay, I'm sure you will. Commissioners, do we have questions for staff or comments?
No, for me, Chevrolet, go ahead.
Well, I think my comments would be in support of what they want to do with this house. I would say, my primary focus on all these properties are the improvements to the property. Do they enhance the property and make the property more fitting to the community? And I just looked at those drawings, and certainly what they're wanting to do is a dramatic improvement over what was there. And in terms of, if you slice up the different elements, I think the shutters are perfectly appropriate for that style and that era of house. So that box is, to me, I don't see any issue with that. The addition of this second building, the thing that I look at that has been brought up is the scale of the building as it corresponds with the main house. And one of the things I only noticed as we got in here and the gentleman brought up is that garage and apartment are at a lower elevation. First of all, the overall height of the building is lower, but then second, it's a lower elevation. So it doesn't look like some giant tail wagging a small dog. It looks appropriate in scale to the building in front of it. So I don't have any problem with that. And the details of the architecture look great. I see that they're freeing up a side yard for use, which apparently they want to put a pool in. I understand that. So honestly, I don't really have any problems with this design, even though there are issues related to setbacks or sizing or whatever. That's why I asked the question about if it was attached to the house, what bearing would any of this have on anything? But if you look at the side elevation, the neighbor, I think the house next door is a one-story house. It's not, I never associate that house with that neighborhood. It's not even appropriate to that neighborhood. But this house looks beautiful, and I think what they want to add to it only helps to embellish the architecture and adds to the value of the property. So, my vote would be to let them do whatever they want to do, because these drawings look good to me. I might, if it was me, I might lay it out differently and use this existing driveway, but otherwise, I think it looks good.
All right, other comments from commissioners?
Well, based on what Commissioner Sheffalo stated and what you stated, Chair Herring, is that further conversation needs to be had to come to an agreement about the sizes and the measurements and the ramifications and what have you. But again, when that comes back, then where will we be then?
Well, we may be in the same place. I don't feel comfortable making a decision either way. I just feel like more time may be appropriate to alleviate some of the staff concerns, and maybe not. But
I would agree with that. I would agree with that, letting everybody have time to figure this out.
I mean, they only met on Thursday for whatever reason that was. That's just not a whole lot of time. But obviously, I can't make a motion, but I would be in favor of a continuance to next month's meeting.
Yeah, I would too, but I would encourage the applicant to sit down with our staff and kind of go through these details and see what could be worked out. But personally, I think it looks fine, but I agree with what you're asking.
And Anna, one thing that concerns me, and of course the historic district guidelines, I don't know how many decades old they are, but it seems like they may need, and this isn't necessarily, well, I'm not sure, but anyway, it seems like they may need to be reviewed, revised, something. There's some disconnect with what's actually happening on the ground and the guidelines themselves. Just food for thought.
Sure. Commissioner Ketchum?
Yeah, I just think the scale in the proximity to the property line is a concern. I think the design is nice. I don't have an issue with the shutters. And also, I mean, we live in a historic district, but people live differently than they did in 1920, so there's some need for some of that. But Yeah, I think it's too close to the property line and the scale. I like that it's lower, but yeah, I think that's something they can work with staff on and find a happy medium for that.
Okay.
I'd
so
like to note that the guidelines for Elizabeth Boulevard were updated on August 9th, 2007. I too have concerns about the scale of the house. I think the design is absolutely beautiful, and I'd want to live there too if it looked like that. But, these rules are in place, and you've got to, obey them. So,
Oh, and thank you for clarifying. So 2007, so,
by the way,
almost-
I would also like to go on record saying, it does say in here in the guidelines that non-existing shutters could be used. On page 8. Let's see. It was in here. I just saw it. I should have noted it, what page it was on before I moved it.
So
but it was there.
I think that I don't have a problem with the shutters.
I do
Alright.
want to say, though, that is a guideline, and where it clearly states non-original shutters may be added if in keeping with the architectural style of the house. Staff does consider that they are not original, so this house didn't originally have them, so that would not really apply in this case. If it had shutters before, they were deteriorated and they want to replace them, that's kind of the interpretation that we made. It would be a different situation.
All right. Well, I'll just reiterate that I think some more time for discussion would be helpful. Perhaps not, but that's how I see
I
it.
agree with that.
Yes, Commissioner Musey.
I'm just curious, so they have the house on the market. Are they gonna still, they're wanting to do this renovation or new build while it's on the market?
Well, let's ask Mr. Logan to come back to the podium, so we'll reopen the public hearing for this question or clarification.
So, so are they going to take it off the market if they get approved to do this? What, I don't understand.
Well, if someone steps forward and buys the house for their asking price, I think they'd sell the house.
Okay,
Otherwise, their intention is to live here long term.
okay, so okay, gotcha.
That was the intention when they purchased the house, and
Right.
they have since become extremely frustrated and are now considering what their options are.
Thank
Okay.
you for that
Okay.
information. And it's, we all can ask whatever questions we want to and for our own edification, but that particular question would probably be outside of the scope of our decision-making. But I understand it. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Well, I've, to kind of, no,
have a
it's
question?
going to be for staff. Yeah, more
All right.
process.
All right.
This is just in broad terms, not specific to this. But if a COA is approved and issued and a property is sold, that COA can then be used to construct whatever is approved by whoever the purchaser is of the property, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Goes
so
with the
that
land.
makes sense.
Okay. And again, not related to this specific case, but an issue that I've seen in the past has been when that COA has been handed to the purchaser of the property is not really fully aware of all the discussions that went on, and they just go do what they think they should be doing. So that's just something to be conscious of in terms of the way that the city COA process
Yeah,
works.
that's where I was going.
No, very good point. Absolutely, for both of you. So thank you. All right. Any other discussion? If not, we're open for a motion.
Would this be a motion that we'd want to deny without prejudice so they can bring it back, or would it be a
Continuance.
continuance? Is that a better way to phrase that one? Yeah.
Anna, I'm going to defer to you. What if we want to allow more time, what would be the preference? A continuance or to go to staff recommendation to deny without prejudice?
Well, denial without prejudice, of course, will not put a time frame for this. I think that Mr. Logan would like a time frame on it, so it might be better to do the continuance.
Do we want to ask him if he would prefer a time frame?
Let's don't do that right now.
With Lorelei.
Yes. Okay.
Hey, y'all. No, I just wanted to jump in. So if you do a continuance, we would need all of the updated stuff by next Monday in order to get it on the next agenda. Just throwing that out there.
Okay, with that being said, I think it's better that we go with staff recommendations to give them ample time to communicate, make alterations, and do what needs to be done.
Without putting that
Burden.
pretty serious constraint and burden on.
I
either
just
party.
want to make a note. This is Trey. You could also continue for beyond just next month's meeting.
Oh, okay.
You could make it the following month, but again, the ultimate effect is the same as a denial without prejudice. That means they can bring it back anytime. A continuance just kind of keeps it on the recurring schedule.
Thank you, that's very helpful. And one more question for staff. If the staff recommendation is followed, denial without prejudice, and the applicant wants to come back, do they have, is there another filing fee or anything like that?
We don't charge for our application, so they can just
Okay,
submit.
yeah, I didn't think so. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Sure.
All right,
All right, then I, Commissioner Ketchum, make a motion that we deny without prejudice.
Second,
who was the second?
me.
Okay,
Commissioner Brizendine.
all right. On HCLC-26-050, we have a motion to deny without prejudice by Commissioner Ketchum, seconded by Commissioner Brizendine.
Thank you, Chair Herring. How do you vote?
Yay.
Vice Chair Kelly Gardner, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Musey, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Tucker, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Sheffalo, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Malone, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Ketchum, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Brizendine, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Halden, how do you vote?
Yay.
Motion passes 9-0. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Let's move on to the next case.
All right. Next case is 2239 6th Avenue, HCLC 26051, and the applicant requests a certificate of appropriateness to apply a painted coating to the historic brick. The proposal includes the application of coating to the original historic brick on the contributing structure located at 2239 6th Avenue. The brick masonry is an original exterior material and defined feature of the structure historic character within the Fairmont District. Section 8 of the Fairmont Historic District Standard, citing in masonry, states the original brick and the decorative elements shall be maintained and shall not be changed by the introduction of a different material. Also, the Secretary of the Interior Standards for the treatment of historic properties requires that historic character be retained and preserved, and that distinctive materials, finishes, and construction techniques be maintained. Brick masonry that has remained unpainted since construction is considered a distinctive historic material. Altering its natural appearance through the application of a coating is not consistent with these standards, as it changes the material historic finish and may impair its long-term preservation performance. Because the structure is a contributing structure within the Fairmont Historic District, maintaining the integrity of its original masonry is essential to preserving both the individual building and the district as a whole. Having regard to the foregoing, staff recommend the following: that the request for a certificate of appropriateness to apply a coating to the historic unpainted brick at 2239 6th Avenue be denied without prejudice. This concludes staff report.
All right, thank you very much for that information. Is there anyone in the chamber to speak on this account? I mean, in this case, please come forward, sir, and give us your name and address for the record.
Howdy. My name is Eric Bussey, address 2239 6th Avenue. Right, so we worked with a mason. We evaluated the condition of the brick with our mason. We noted several signs of age-related wear, including uneven moisture absorption across the brick surface, recessed and stressed mortar joints in areas of straining, as well as moisture tracking along exposed elevations. While the masonry remains structurally sound, these conditions indicate that the brick has become more porous after a century of environmental exposure. We are not looking to do a modern paint. That was never the intention. What we were looking to pursue was a lime wash, which is unlike a modern paint or synthetic clear sealant. It bonds with the masonry, remains vapor permeable, allowing the brick to breathe rather than trapping moisture inside the wall. This treatment acts as a sacrificial protective layer meaning that the lime wash gradually weathers over time instead of the brick face itself. In other words, it's a protective layer, right? And given the fact that our brick, according to our mason, is not something that is readily available to find, and we're already seeing a lot of cracks and missing bricks and certain things, we feel that it's within the interest of the property to apply something to protect and preserve that brick that we can't actually seek to replace. So yeah, that's our case.
Okay, thank you for that information. And a question or a clarification. So the coating that you referred to just now, is it, would it be clear? I guess that's my question.
It would not be clear. It would likely be white to off-white, a traditional
All right.
lime wash.
All right, gotcha.
It's like a slurry.
Okay.
Yeah, we
is-
actually have a
it's-
photo.
There's
of
two
it.
different pictures, but they were significantly different amount of textures on them.
Yeah.
That can be adjusted. Just the mason can work to apply it thicker or less thick. The one additional benefit that I didn't mention is that it's easily reversed. Like you can use general materials to pull it off if that was something that a future homeowner wanted to do.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Bussey right now? All right. Thank you very much, sir. Anyone else in the chamber who wants to speak on this case? All right. Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the hearing. And just one comment. Yes, I was aware of the pictures, the illustrations that we saw, but the way he was describing it sounded a little different to me, but it's clarified, so that's fine. Commissioners, comments, discussion?
I've actually had a situation like this years ago. I had a house in similar condition, and I had one of two choices: either remove all the brick from the house and re-brick the house, or do exactly this. And it sounds like he's had the same situation. I couldn't replace the brick because it wasn't made anymore. So I also had this situation, let me think here, 20 years ago. I bought a house in Crestwood, same exact situation. It was a red brick 2-story house on Ridgewood Road. And my solution to that was I went out and found brick, replacement brick. It was not easy. Hired a mason, fixed all the holes. It was very expensive. That's solution, I guess, number 2. And then solution number 3 is what he's talking about. And from my perspective, I would look to what would have been appropriate at the time for this house, in terms of fixing it. Well, these bricks don't exist anymore unless you go to some rare brickyard in Missouri or somewhere and find the replacement bricks. New bricks aren't going to look the same as this. So, the practical solution is doing what he's talking about doing, which that material is a masonry type material. It's almost like a hybrid stucco, whatever you want to call it. It's what's been used in places like Louisiana for years. So when we came up early and we talked about this, I realize it's not the original brick. Once again, you got these restrictions to our code here, but it's the practical solution to the problem that this house faces, and probably lots of other houses that will come before us in the future.
That material that's being used, is there?
It's not
But-
paint. It's
yeah.
not paint. So it breathes like brick. And I just had a conversation the other day with a contractor about these kind of issues with painting brick. And you paint brick, you seal it, water gets behind it, and it starts creating fungus and mold and all this stuff behind the brick wall, and your house suddenly has black mold. This material is a breathable material that becomes like the brick. And I don't remember the line you used, but it was pretty accurate.
So my question is that as far as the color of the material that's being used, is there a more comparable color that matches?
You can select your color. You can put color into the slurry, and you can get it close to the color of the house.
So I believe one of the things that we discussed during a work session was that color, was that whitewashed looking color that was that.
Those
was going
pictures
over
you
the
see
brick.
are just, those are just pictures of
Uh-huh.
other examples, but you can color the slurry. Essentially, what you want to try to do is something that looks good with your brick.
Uh-huh.
And that becomes, it becomes like whatever your taste is. But the slurry can be colored, and it could be anything.
A lot of
I just make this more complicated.
no, that's very
Oh, yeah,
helpful. It
very
is very helpful. Just a couple of questions or a couple of things that come to mind. One, and this is a staff question, Jefferson. If we follow the staff recommendation, deny without prejudice, and the applicant continues to work with you and the other staff, I can't remember for certain if we've done this before or not, but can the color of the coating be specified, or is that just get into the weeds too
Caroline, you
much?
think?
Well, he could certainly do examples. He could lay up some examples and.
And then another question before you answer that is that the brick, there's some bricks that are like, for example, missing and
Yep.
broken. The solvent, or I don't know if I'm using the correct verbiage.
Mortar. The
Mortar,
Yep.
is that going to solve
You can
that
match
problem
mortar.
as well?
You can match mortar.
Okay.
The question is whether he can get enough brick to fix this, and to what extent all this damage is. But you can where you had that mortar that was broken, that can be patched exactly so you can't tell where it was. It's going to be a question of whether he can find the brick, and all this can be put together.
All that,
Does
Lorelei?
staff, does staff,
I'll
does
hand it
staff,
to Lorelei.
Oh, we got one more. Hold on, yes.
staff have information on, I mean, how many bricks are missing? Like, I see a
We
picture.
don't have
No, I don't think so. Well, I mean, when we see stuff like this, we tell our applicants, get as close as you can for matching brick. I mean, obviously, you're probably not going to find exactly the thing, but depending on how many you have, you can probably get fairly close, and it's okay. It's okay for it to mismatch. I know people don't really like that from like an aesthetics point, but for a historic preservation point, it's fine to see where those patches have taken place. Another thing is they are going to have to address some of the structural issues that are there. I would also encourage them to look at what exactly is their mortar right now. If it is cement based or Portland cement based, that is already going to cause a suffocation, and they would need to redo all that anyway, because the sacrificial part that they're referring to whenever they're talking about putting a lime like wash over this is that sacrificial part. In traditional masonry, the sacrificial part is the mortar, and that is supposed to be lime based so that the water moves through and dries out the bricks and all of that. So I don't think, while this can be a treatment, I don't think that according to our guidelines and according to what Fairmount has told us in their letters, that this is a treatment that can be looked at for right now. It's possible that they might get the same kind of protection with some sort of like clear sealant. We've approved that on different buildings before. That doesn't change the look so much, but ultimately that's why we brought it to you, because we say no and they want it to happen. So
No, that's helpful. And, we get into a whole lot of technicalities, even in our first case today, just with the windows and all of that. And there can be solutions, as Commissioner Cefalos alluded to, and others and whatever. But, kind of a basic principle of historic preservation is you don't paint brick. And I realize
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah,
really paint.
right.
Yeah.
But so that keeps coming into my head. When we first looked at this, when I first looked at it, and when we discussed it earlier, that's just kind of historic preservation 101.
Well, and I don't see brick failing. I see a missing brick, and then I see a lot of wood failing.
Yeah.
And that's where the water is getting. It's getting in along the trim of the windows and the doors. This needs some new trim. It needs caulking, and that's going to solve 90% of your moisture problems. And then, bricks have to be repointed every so often in that mortar, and I think that's the fix. yeah, you can slap that on there and it helps blend it in. And if you're trying to patch a lot of bricks, it can kind of mask it a little bit. But I don't see a lot of bricks missing. I see just a lot of delayed maintenance on this.
I have a question. Could they replace could they take all the brick off and this wood rot and replace it with new brick that's appropriate to the house? Or what are the limitations of that?
Sure. So there's actually another property in Fairmount that is having some of this same sort of issue. And what we have worked out with them is that they are going to take off the brick entirely. They're going to save as much as they can. And if, and then match with new as close as they as possibly can.
Yeah, I hate to say this again, but I just finished remodeling a house that had all of these problems. I just don't want anybody coming by my house to look at it. But it's not in the historic district, and I had it's a pier and beam house, and the lower part of the house had been covered with some sort of some sort of wood covering, and I tore all of that off and built a masonry stem wall, and then re-bricked my entire house. And I'm looking at these pictures, and it looks a lot like what I had on my house. And that might be the simplest and most straightforward solution to this.
Well, it's tough because if you have a 100-year-old house, you're going to have these issues. But when you are in a historic district, it is what it is as far as the guidelines and so forth. All right. Any other discussion before we're open for a motion? Hearing none, we're open for a motion.
I'll make a motion to deny without prejudice, and they can work with the city staff.
Second. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Ketchum and a second by Commissioner Tucker. And if this motion passes, the applicant, you can certainly come back to work with the city and bring this back with a different or an alternate solution. But having said that, we're ready.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Chair Herring, how do you vote?
Yay.
Vice Chair Kelly Gardner, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Musi, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Tucker, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Sheffalo, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Malone, how do you vote? Commissioner Ketchum, how do you
Yay.
vote? And Commissioner Halden, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Brycendine, how do you vote?
Yay.
Motion passes 9-0. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that, and we're ready for the next case.
Okay, next case is HLC 26037. And the address is 1601 Lipscomb Street. And the applicant requests a certificate of appropriateness to construct an addition to the contributing structure. The proposal includes the demolition of the non-historic Hinash gym addition and construction of a new approximately 18,000 square foot addition along the south and east elevations of the historic fire station number 8. The addition will provide expanded community programming space, including gym, lobby, teaching, kitchen, fitness center, and multipurpose rooms. The project also includes site improvements such as parking, reconfiguration, playground enhancements, and service areas. Fire station number 8 is a contributing structure within the Fairmont Historic District and was designed by the architect Charles Allen in 1923. The building has served as a community center since 1979. The proposed addition is located on secondary elevation and is designed to be compatible in scale and massing while remaining differentiated from the historic building. Serial work to the historic building primarily includes repair-in-kind replacement of existing materials, along with removal of non-historic security bars and treatment of previously altered openings. However, the proposed storefront system on the second floor of the south elevation is not appropriate and must be removed from the proposal. The existing historic windows must be retained and repaired or replaced in kind if in kind is necessary without altering their dimensions or profile. Having regard the foregoing, staff recommend the following: that the request for certificate of appropriateness for demolition of the addition and construction of the new expanded addition associated with site improvement and exterior alterations of the historic fire station be approved, subject to the following conditions. The proposed storefront system on the second floor of the south elevation be removed from the proposal. Existing windows shall be retained and repaired or replaced in kind if necessary, matching the original materials, design, dimensions, and profiles of the historic windows. That all windows and door repairs and replacement of the historic structure be performed in kind, matching as well the original materials, design, and profiles. And any adjustments made to the drawings be submitted to the Development Services Department prior to the issuance of certificate of appropriateness. This concludes staff report.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone in the chamber to speak on this case? No one? Oh, well, please come forward, sir, and give us your comments and your name and address for the record.
Okay, sorry about that. There you
That's good. You're good.
My name is Jim Tharp. I'm with Williams Tharp Architects, so we're the architect for the city for this project.
Okay, great.
I understand that there's set to approve the COE or COA except for the windows that are on the second floor. What I just wanted to point out before we decide on that is, has anyone here been to the existing rec center?
I have. I don't know about others.
So if you'll remember when you go in, that's a really small lobby with a really low ceiling. So one of the things, this being a much bigger project, we have a much bigger lobby for more people to circulate through here, and an 8-foot ceiling just did not seem appropriate for the size of lobby that we've got. So to raise the ceiling height in there, we're going to have to raise the structure where it attaches to the old building. So what we have proposed is we're keeping the windows. We're just going to basically essentially cut them in half. We're going to take out the old windows, reduce them to about half so we can get a taller structure and a taller ceiling in that lobby. The other thing I wanted to point out is with the new design, you really can't see those windows from the street. I mean, you can see the top of them, which is what we're going to maintain visually. So from the street, I don't think you're really going to see much of a difference as far as the windows themselves. We've proposed storefront. It doesn't have to be storefront. There's all kinds of, I guess, more appropriate type windows we could replace them with that are modern. But that, just want to get that out there that you're not going to see the entire window that you see on the existing building now. And in fact, if you're in those rooms and you look out onto that, when you stand there and look out of those windows, you can see what you're looking at, rooftop units and the roof and things like that. So, we want to keep that daylight in there. We just want to reduce those windows, still get the light into those spaces. But again, that helps us get the ceiling up in a much larger lobby space than what is existing there now.
Okay, well, that's helpful to know. So, excuse me, thank you. And I've got a question for you. I was going to address this to the staff, and I may still do that, but since you're here and you're the architect, I'll ask you. When we saw I guess I'll say the concept plan about a year ago, whenever it was, and I don't recall if you were at that meeting, but whoever did the presentation told us this was coming and all that. Okay, so I asked at that time about the original front porch being restored, and I can't remember what the response was. Pardon me, but the Fairmount Neighborhood Association has raised that issue again, about restoring the front porch. Is there any reason that could not be done? I mean, it would reduce the usable square footage of the interior. I get that, but it's not much. And I'm looking at an original picture of the station. Is there any feasible reason or a reasonable reason that couldn't be done?
I do recall that being asked at that. At this point, my answer is it's not part of the project. We are not at.
I get it.
To restore the front porch. That would cut down on the usable square footage. What we have in the plans currently, that's sort of the teen room, game room area. And if that happened, that would get reduced quite a bit by restoring that porch. But
Okay.
it is not currently part of the project that we've been asked to restore. So.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. Commissioners, any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Excuse me. Do we have questions for staff? I'm just going to repeat that question and be a thorn in the city's side. But when knowing our historic preservation office staff, was that ever raised with the Parks and Rec department, or, and you know, that may be going back a long time and maybe there's no good answer, but I'm just curious.
Sure. And as I mentioned in work session, I was part of some of the meetings probably about a year ago, and we talked a little bit about just restoration in general of the property. And at that time, like budgets, and there were budget constraints, and then of course the space. It is an enclosed portion, but it's also usable space that they are working out of right now. I will point out that they are doing some other restoration bits on the main structure. They're going to paint and repair some of the masonry and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, mostly it was budget constraints, and that it's a usable space was.
And I
what
get
remember.
it, the usable space and everything else. And quite frankly, there's this picture that I was referring to came from our letter from Fairmount Neighborhood Association. But the picture that was in the staff report, the historic picture, was probably maybe from the 50s or something.
Yeah.
Like that. And, at some point, alterations to buildings also become part of the historic fabric. So, all right. Well, I'm not going to press the issue, but I just wanted to ask the question.
It's a good question. Yes.
All right.
We can always try to encourage, but we cannot enforce restoring that front porch.
No,
That helps.
Everybody's fighting for every dollar they can get their hand on, for sure. Okay, commissioners, other questions for staff or discussion? All right, hearing none, we're open for a motion. Oh, and keep in mind that,
Conditions.
the staff is recommending that it be approved with 3 conditions, and the first condition has to do with those second-story windows that were addressed. So if you want to, just keep that in mind in whatever motion you're contemplating.
I would like to make a motion to approve based on staff recommendations for the windows.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we've got a motion by Vice Chair Kelly Gardner with a second by Commissioner Musey that does include staff condition number 1, that the proposed storefront system on the second floor, the south elevation, be removed from the proposal and the existing windows retained. Get that correct? Okay. All right. We've got a motion and a second.
All right.
Yeah, right.
Before we move on.
Mr. Herring.
Please.
Yeah, before we vote, I want to confirm, your motion is with all staff conditions, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have time for,
Now that motion is made, I would say I wouldn't approve. Those windows from the explanation, those are on the south elevation. Those are facing the new structure that's being built. So they are effectively, I don't have exact measurements, but they're, within 20 feet or 15 feet of the new, they're attached. The new structure is immediately below those windows. And then there's a higher wall directly horizontal across from those windows. That's the new structure, as was mentioned by the architect in this design work. Okay, so here we can see in the top elevation picture, the windows we're talking about are the ones that are barely visible, right in the middle to the left of the steps up on the second floor.
Yeah.
To me, it just appears as if that's a parapet wall on a patio sort of view. You aren't going to have perspective. And my fear is with this is that if we require that those windows maintain that height, that for the sake of a few square feet of glass on one side of a wall, we are literally cutting the roof, the ceiling height down dramatically by a few feet in the what will be sort of the grand foyer entrance to this space. And I mean, for that reason, I would say I won't support the motion because I feel like it's something that, I mean, obviously we want to preserve the historic nature of the structure, and I think that this this architectural work helps to do that. But I don't want to kill that entrance. I mean, I have gone into this space. I've voted in here before, and I've been in here before. I've been in that gym, and so I don't want to kill this great new entrance to this great new addition to this historic building on this site just for the sake of foot, 2 feet of window.
So what would you do? Because I see also Commissioner Ketchum.
Well, I'll add to what Commissioner Brizendine said. I also feel that the requirement number one, would impact the design of the building, and as he said, and as Commissioner Brizendine said, really affect the lobby and the main entrance to the building. So that's kind of where I am too.
So Trey, can we, if someone was to make a motion, we could approve with staff conditions except for number 1, wherever the window 1 is. Is that how you phrase that?
Sure. Yeah. Now we have a motion and a second, so we can have an alternate motion at this time. If you wanted to do a motion
Can we have an amended motion by Vice Chair Kelly Gardner, or?
You could also, yeah, if the movement would like to amend her motion, you can do that. Or if she does not wish to, you could have an alternate motion. You would vote on the alternate motion second, and it could be approved subject to 1 or not 1 or not 2 or not 3, whichever.
I'd like to chime in real quick. Our goal here is to protect the historic structures in Fort Worth, not the new development. So I'm all about keeping the windows in place.
Okay. Good perspective.
One question I would have that in this situation is, and maybe city staff can answer this. So in this image that we see here right now, we have a very short 8-inch tall parapet wall adjacent to this flat roof. In the new design, based on the height of that wall is higher, it appears, at least from the renderings, that what we see right there as a 3 or 5 or so inch parapet wall, that wall is actually higher on the new design. In other words, it's hiding from any viewpoint other than an aerial. It's hiding the view of those windows.
Yeah,
I
but
appear to see.
again, we believe as a preservation staff, there's options to keep the size and still have that kind of feeling that they want to project with the entrance without damaging the size of the windows. Because maybe in the future, if they would like to do another expansion and kind of demolish this expansion, that at least the fire station looks gonna be the same. So that's where stuff is coming from. Like, we believe there's options to keep the current size and look of the original windows.
And I'll just reiterate, I think while I certainly understand and respect that comment, I think given the addition that is being done to this structure, and given the fact that the height of these windows is not going to be visible to, anyone except a bird or a plane flying over, to me, I just don't sacrificing that in order to make the entrance, because this will be the main entrance to this community center. I mean, it's a community center. Like, I want it to be as grand as possible for Fairmount and for the neighborhood over there. The people using it and feel right and appropriate scale-wise. So
Well, and that's, you know, what we're here for, is to sometimes make some tough,
What do these
perhaps
windows look?
pragmatic decisions.
What do these windows look out onto? A wall? And so, like, why they're?
I mean,
Why do you need windows?
I mean, I would say if they were facing a public, if they're facing the right of way and visible, then I would certainly say they've got to stay. But at this point, they're literally facing another.
Or if they were facing something pretty to look out onto?
Well, but the underlying, you know, theory or, preservation theory is to preserve what was originally built. But I get your point for sure. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. So we would vote on that motion first, correct?
So if you don't have a alternative motion at this time, you would vote on, it's time to vote on the motion on the floor if there's no other discussion.
Okay, but there could be an alternative motion, right?
I can make it now.
Correct.
So I'll make a motion to approve HCLC-26-037 with the removal of
Number 1.
number 1, and everything else remain the same per staff.
And I'll second that.
Okay, do we have a second on the alternate motion?
We did.
Ketchum.
Commissioner Ketchum. Okay, all right, but we need to act on the first motion.
No, you vote on the alternate
Okay.
motion first.
All right, thank you for keeping me in line. All right,
All right.
we have a motion, an alternate motion by Commissioner Brizendine with a second by Commissioner Ketchum.
All right. Chair Herring, how do you vote?
Yay.
Vice Chair Kelly Garner, how do you vote?
Come back to me. I have to think
Okay.
about it.
Commissioner Musi, how do you vote? Come back to you as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Tucker, how do you vote?
Yay.
Yay. Okay. Commissioner Sheffalo, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Malone, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Ketchum, how do you vote?
Yay.
Commissioner Halden, how do you vote?
Nay.
Okay. Commissioner Bryson-Dine.
Yay.
And back to Vice Chair Kelly Garner.
I'm gonna go with nay.
Nay. Okay. And Commissioner Musi.
I gotta say yay.
Yay. Okay. So motion passes.
Yeah, it's gonna pass.
We have 8 yays and 2 nays.
So motion passes, right?
I believe it's 7-2, so the motion passes.
Passes, yeah.
Yes.
7.
Okay, all right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Good discussion, commissioners.
That's good, y'all.
All right, next case, please.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
All right, your next case, HCLC 26-052, 1227 Verbena Street. The applicant requests COA to construct multifamily residence. On December 8th, 2025 and February 9th, 2026, the HCLC denied without prejudice for the applicant to continue working on the scale and masking of the previous designs. Since then, the applicant and staff have worked continuously to update the design to be more in line with the Historic District Design Guidelines and have achieved a multifamily residence that is consistent with the block and the design guidelines. Therefore, staff recommends the following: that the request for a COA to construct a new multifamily residence at 1227 Verbena Avenue be approved with the following conditions: that the front door configuration, reflect a typical front door style and configuration that is compatible and consistent with the historic district, that the windows be installed in a way that is compatible with the fenestration style in the district, i.e. inset with appropriate projecting sills, header, and trim, and that any adjustments made to the drawings be submitted to the Development Services Department prior to the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness. This concludes the staff report.
All right, thank you very much for that. Anyone in the chamber to speak on this case? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion, and commissioners are open for a motion in a second or discussion.
I make a motion to approve based on staff recommendations.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion to approve with staff conditions by Vice Chair Kelly Gardner and a second by Commissioner Ketchum.
Thank you. Chair Herring, how do you vote?
Yay.
Vice Chair Kelly Gardner?
Yay.
Commissioner Musey?
Yay.
Commissioner Halden?
Yay.
Commissioner Malone?
Yay.
Commissioner Ketchum?
Yay.
Commissioner Shuffalo?
Yay.
Commissioner Brizendine?
Yay.
And Commissioner Tucker?
Yay.
Thank you. Motion passes 9-0.
Great. Next case, please.
All right, this one is not going to be so quick, but I'll try. 901/909 Evans Avenue, HCLC 26-022. The applicant requests a COA to construct multifamily residences. The proposed design for both two-story multifamily residences, 901 Evans Avenue, aka Building F, and 909 Evans Avenue, aka Building G, reflects an orientation and setback and massing that is consistent with the commercial character of the Evans Avenue streetscape that predominantly contains one- and two-story commercial structures that are primarily located at the zero lot line. The historic Mount Zion Baptist Church at the end of Evans serves as an anchor for the south end of Evans, and a two-story multifamily structure will echo that anchor on the north end. The contextual elevation demonstrates a building form, massing, and design that is mostly consistent with traditional commercial structures along the streetscape. While the use is residential, the design should take elements from the commercial buildings in order to fit in with the established historic streetscape. These include an all-brick facade, a consistent cantilevered awning where possible, and a clear separation with some sort of brick coursing or stone belly band treatment. Siding is typically reserved for rear facades of commercial structures. The mix of siding and faux stucco panels are not consistent with the district guidelines. The vinyl windows with a casement style on the first floors and the multi-divided light with a single operating sash on the second floors are reminiscent of the typical storefront and upper floor residential configurations and consistent with the guidelines. The parking lot located at the rear of 901 Evans Avenue, aka Building F, is consistent with the recommended locations for parking lots and is screened on the Terrell Avenue side. The front streetscape in front of both buildings will reflect the consistent walkable configuration for that corridor and mirror the condition on the west side of Evans that is reviewed under the near south side form-based code. It is also important to note that there is a state historical marker for the Terrell Heights neighborhood located at the corner of Evans and Terrell that will need to be protected during construction and, if removed, be stored securely with the county and reinstalled once the project is complete. And then also we did receive a letter of support from the Near South Side Inc. Having regard to the foregoing, staff recommends the following: that the request for a certificate of appropriateness to construct new multifamily residences at 901 and 909 Evans Avenue be approved with the following conditions: that the materials used on the front and side facades be all brick to reflect a consistent material on the streetscape and the guidelines, that a consistent cantilevered awning be placed over the first floor where possible to reflect a typical storefront configuration, that a treatment of either brick coursing or stone or similar be placed between the first and second floors be installed to reflect a consistent look of a typical two-story commercial building, that the state historical marker located at the corner of Evans and Terrell be protected during construction, or if it needs to be removed, stored, and reinstalled after the project is complete, and that any adjustments made to the drawings be submitted to the Development Services Department prior to the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness. This concludes the staff report.
All right, thank you for that. Is there anyone in the chamber to speak on this case? If so, please come forward and give us your comments and your name, please.
Hello, my name is Brittany Youngblood, and address is 4400 State Highway, Suite 800. I am with McAdams, so we're actually the civil on this project with Evans and Rosedale. So I am not the architect, but I can read whatever plans they presented to me for any questions I may answer. This project has, I don't know if you guys are maybe probably familiar with the old Evans and Rosedale and how that went, and we're now with the client, World Capital. We're really excited to get this project going, to actually see this project come to life, and working with staff has been great. And as far as the coordination pieces, and the architect, the client, and staff have been very open in making sure that we're following all our guidelines, as well as making sure that the project is feasible on all sides as well. So, That's all I really got.
Great, and you're in agreement or with all the staff, the conditions for approval?
Yes.
Great, all right, thank you.
And thank you for your patience as, yeah. that
Yes.
was
This has actually
long.
been very entertaining, so I thank you guys.
So that's a lot, and it's exciting to see something starting to happen, so
Absolutely.
that's good news. Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, thank you very much. Just one question, or not a question, just comment to staff. I had asked about the historical marker, and I had neglected to see you had that as a condition. So thank you very much for having that in there. Any questions for staff? And if not, we're open to a motion and a second.
I make a motion to approve based on the staff recommendation.
Second.
And that second was you, Commissioner Tucker. Okay, I wasn't sure who it was. All right, we have a motion by Vice Chair Kelly Gardner and a second by Commissioner Tucker to approve the COA with the staff conditions noted.
Thank you. Chair Herring, how do you vote?
Yay.
Vice Chair Kelly Gardner.
Yay.
Commissioner Musey.
Yay.
Commissioner Halden.
Yay.
Commissioner Malone.
Yay.
Commissioner Ketchum.
Yay.
Commissioner Shuffalo.
Yay.
Commissioner Brizendine.
Yay.
Commissioner Tucker.
Yay.
Thank you. Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you. And do we need to take any action on the case that was withdrawn?
No, I'm just going to say it for
Okay.
the record once I get there. Oop, too far. The next case on the docket, number 6, HCLC 26-041, has been administratively withdrawn. You will see it next month, likely after it has gone through Zoning Commission first.
All right, thank you very much to the staff and commissioners, and we are at 4:08 p.m. officially adjourned.
Well done. Thank you.